Thanks for joining us Behind the Frontline, a podcast providing timeless solutions to everyday workforce and workplace challenges. Frontline Training Solutions is an express employment professionals company, strategically placed between the workplace and the workforce with professionals standing by, ready to combat your unique challenges. Learn more about what we do at frontlineon.com.
Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Frontline, where today we're talking all things retention. We just had a webinar literally about 2 hours ago, and we decided to just jump right into the podcast because we had so many great questions. We wanted to make sure that it was fresh. And so if you haven't watched that webinar yet, we want you to go to frontlineon.com, watch the webinar. It's incredible. We're going to talk more about that in a second, but I am joined in the studio today with Guillermo Gutierrez. Guillermo, why don't you kick it off by just telling us a little bit more about you. Tell us about your role, tell us about your experience, and then let's talk about what the webinar was about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be here. I'm a fan of the podcast, and I know that we just create great content for people that is helpful. So what's my story? I'll do the very short version. I was born and raised in Mexico. That's where I'm from. And I had the opportunity to, right after I graduated from college, go to work in other countries and work for a nonprofit that gave me the opportunity to travel, but also learn about development, interpersonal relations, communication, cultural competence, so a lot of different things that help people be more effective just in their work, any work that is, but also be part of a team, be part of an organization. So I was fascinated by that work. And when I returned to Mexico, I decided to do more formal education in that field. So I did a master's degree in organizational development. Originally, my degree is in marketing. And I set in this trajectory that has been my career. So I came to the U.S. For work. I was working at the time with a large manufacturing company based out of Wisconsin, and I was in Mexico. And I had the opportunity that I've had several times, which I love, to start something from the ground up. When I joined, I was the very first training coordinator in the role that I had for a full manufacturing facility of between 1,200 when I started, about 2,200 when I left. And so it was everything, doing training for floor operators all the way to the leadership team of a plant. And I mentioned that because when you have the opportunity to work across all teams and the whole organization, two things happen in the learning if you pay attention. One, you start distinguishing, right, the particular needs of different groups and how they learn, what they're dealing with, what they're challenged by, what they're good at. But you also start seeing themes, right, across the organization. What are some of the things that either enable or get in the way of people being effective, right, at their job and working together? So eventually I came to the U.S. with this same company, and that's how I landed in Wisconsin in the corporate office of this organization, global private. And my last role with them, and I go to the last one to make it a little shorter, but also because I was another inflection point, right? I took on the role of the second leader of like global diversity and OD and learning, but really specific around how do we help our leaders, managers, employees have a more global mindset, or even step out of this is what I know, and be open to understand how others work. Because in that organization, very quickly, through acquisitions or organic growth, the organization grew to about 40% of employees and revenue coming from outside the U.S., right? So I spent a lot of time designing and partnering with other organizations to bring, training that was needed, get the skills and development for everyone, right, that needed to have that. And so that was another opportunity that I had to see teams not only in the U.S., but across the world, and what were similar challenges and what were things that were different. And so the more different people I work with, the more I see those patterns in what makes successful teams and organizations. And of course, going back to the topic that we talk about today, retention, it's always been this elusive, like, hey, how do I keep people? We talk about attracting the best talent, but keeping that talent at times is equally challenging. And so I spent a lot of time reflecting on really what drives that. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have this and share that with the audience.
Yeah, it was such a well done webinar, and we want you to go listen to it. I really like what you just said. So a lot of what we just talked about was team dynamics and drivers of retention, and we did a podcast not too long ago about motivating factors for team retention. And so you're unique because you have held these roles in various different cultures. And I'm curious to know, is a lot of these motivating factors and norms for team dynamics and retention, is it cross-cultural boundaries, or is it pretty much the same everywhere? Or is there different things that leaders should be looking out for when they have a diverse cultural team?
Yeah, I love that question. And so there are two things that come into play when people are working together, right? And we all decide how to do things based on this understanding. One is individual style, preference, personality. So we do things based on who we are, right? And we can shift and become more flexible. And the more self-aware we are, the more we can adapt. And that's a skill. We also choose to do things based on where we're at and who we're with.
Okay.
Right. And so that has to do with what team I'm in, what organization I'm working with, what department, who, the demographics of the organization, and of course, national culture, regional culture, organizational culture. Right. So I can be the same person and have my preferences, my experiences. I walk into a different organization, not even a different country, but just different organization, even in the same area. But now they're a different industry. Now they have just other norms. And very quickly, because that's how our brain works, right? Survival mechanism. I start picking up on things. Ideally, other people help me understand the rules of engagement before, I have to pick it up by myself. But I start noticing things, right? And you just mirror, right, how it's done here, because we have a need for connection, fitting. We don't want to be as much as we say, I want to be unique, our natural human need is to connect, right? And so to answer your question, those needs and what makes a team effective is relationships, is clarity of roles and how we do things, and is the sense that we are actually in this together. Right? And we mentioned that in the web.
Relationships, clarity of roles, sense that we're doing this together.
Yes, exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and so then everything else, right? I mean, there's a lot that we touch in the webinar that factors into doing that. But those are universal needs, right? Now, within every context, there's how they look might be a little different. But they're pretty much universal principles, as I have found.
That's absolutely fantastic. And we had a conversation before as we were sharing a bit of pizza.
Yeah.
Talking about this podcast. And we had a conversation before about when you step into a team and their dynamics have been going on. Maybe you're a new leader. Maybe you're a leader that's light bulb just kind of clicked on. And all of a sudden you want to propose new things. And you kind of get confronted with, well, this is the way we've always done things. And how do you rise above that? So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah. I think we all have experienced that in every setting where there is a shift, and the shift can be new person, someone who has different ideas. There's so many things, right? there is a natural human concern and response to something changing. Even if it's perceived as something that will end up being better, there's a space where there's discomfort of not knowing yet, right? So you think, I think it's going to be better, but it's not
Fear of
better
the
yet,
unknown, yeah.
right? And so I love this analogy. I don't remember where I read it, but it's, change, individual, organizational, is like being in a trapeze.
Okay.
And you have the other trapeze, right? Like you're in a circus show or whatever, and then the other trapeze is coming to you and you're coming to it. And it can get really close, but there's still a gap when you have to let go of one to grab the other. In that moment, you're in air, and it might be a net many feet down, but you don't have something to grab onto, right? And we fear that moment. And some people naturally are like, I don't care, I'm going to grab it. Some people are like, no, I'm going to stay here until they touch, which they never do. And there are other people are in between, right? So I say this because naturally, no matter what the change is, letting go of the known, even if the known is not perfect or is not good, we have a hard time, right, because of uncertainty. So what happens when anything changes, when a leader comes in that is new to the team, or there's a shift in the role, or a leader goes to an experience, maybe he's being coached, and then now sees the different opportunities for the team to do better, it helps. And actually, the way it can work for the best is, one, if the team already has trust, and trust if there's trust in the team, even without the leader, this is helpful because there is already a fertile ground, if you will, right? There's a commitment to winning together. So if that's there, then there's more openness to say, all right, let's hear it, right? If you are going to contribute to our team's success, we'll hear it. If you're a leader and you're bringing something different, right? You're changing because you saw the light, you have a new initiative, or sometimes you're asked to implement something new. Having built that trust with the team, right, helps you gain, helps the team give you the benefit of the doubt, if you will. Right? That's not necessarily the right term, but they trust you because they've trusted you before, right? And we all experience that. So that's what trust is so critical. And if you don't have the trust because you're new to the team, building that connection and trust and credibility is critical for the true openness of the team to consider and to buy into doing that, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, people will do it because you're the boss, if you're the team lead, but it's not going to last, and it's not going to really contribute to that.
Yeah. I love the analogy you gave of the trapeze. Maybe that's the next team building exercise for your team. Please don't. We do not condone trapeze in the workspace. I believe that I'm probably on that side of, I'm just going to let go and see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm one of my, we do the strengths finder here at Frontline, and one of my top skills is self-assurance. And so I've always been pretty, I think I'll land on my feet.
Yeah.
What do you think you'd be? Would you let go? Would you a little more hesitant?
It depends on, like, if it's my idea, I'll let go right away.
Absolutely.
If it's someone else's idea, I will I don't know. Like, did someone did the trapeze right? Like, who stole it? Right? But I tend to be, let's jump in and see what happens.
I like it.
But so this is a great point. Because this also has to be, so now we're talking a little bit about change, right? But that's part of the team experience. The recognition from the leader of the readiness, right? Because when you're talking about a trapeze, it's just you go to the next side, and that's good, right? So you're Tarzan, you keep going from one to another, and you get somewhere. If you have a team with you, and you're the one who grabs the next one and grabs the next one and keeps going, and the team is not ready and they keep swinging in the same one, they're left behind.
It's a great point. Yeah.
And so that hurts trust and also hurts performance, because you're actually not there together, right? So it's important to have that self-awareness of that.
Oh, yeah. Manage the change effectively. You shared in the webinar that only 31% of U.S. employees report being engaged, and that engagement is at a 10-year low. What do you think we're seeing? Why do you think we're seeing that drop off right now? And what are leaders still misunderstanding about engagement?
It's many things. It's part the experience of people with the organizations in general. Okay. I mean, generational speaking, if you, there's a lot of research and there's some archetypes of like, okay, well, boomers, this is, how they operate and what they care about, and Generation X, etc. And what you see in that, in describing, right, different generations is a shift between the trust that people have in the organization, that the organization also has their best interest at heart.
Okay.
And that they will do, like if I do my job and take care of you, organization, you'll take care of me, right? That's kind of a contract. And for the longest time, we operated in many ways in that model, right? And there's still layoffs and restructures, but in general, the sense was, this is how it's done, right? I become part of an organization, it's bigger than me, I'm part of a whole, I belong, I have my place, and that's how it works. And the confidence and trust in institutions in general has eroded over time.
Interesting.
Right? And so the younger generations, even from boomers to Xers, which is my generation, there's a bit more cynicism, a bit more, all right, I need to really figure out how to make sure that I am okay, right? Because no one else is going to just do it for me. We lived through an era when there were more company decisions that were clearly purely financial, and the employees who had the trust of like, what happened, right? I thought we were endgame and you're breaking up with me. And so as time passes, that experience has been the majority of people, right? Those young professionals. So that's one, right? That engagement is a measure of how much you're willing to give beyond what's expected.
Okay.
Right? And so discretionary effort is something that is given, it cannot be taken. Meaning, you asked me to do these 5 things so I can get my paycheck, right? So this is my job. I'll do the 5 things. I could do 7 or do those 5 things even better, but that's my choice, right? You can't force me to do more than
the expectation.
Basic expectation. So if I decide to do more, right, to think creatively, to contribute in other ways, it's because I want to. And the I want to means I'm engaged. I believe that not only do I want to contribute because I want to see us be successful, but I also feel that I have everything that I need to do it, right? I connect to the purpose organization. I have the tools that I need. I have good relationships. And so those are some of the reasons, right? Why I think trust is one, but also the marketplace. There are many more employers and many more freelancers today than there's ever been. And so the vehicle of being an organization, being an employee or a corporate employee, is not the only way now, right, to have a career professionally. So those are a couple of things that come to mind, but definitely it's a complex topic.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Just even thinking about a lot of what you stated, we've discussed before, is the employer brand and the employer value proposition, and how if you help address an employee's purpose, impact, and belonging, that the paycheck just is important, and that's almost baseline, but it's not the only thing that employees are looking for. They're looking for their purpose there, and they're looking to make an impact, and they're looking to belong somewhere. And but I've never really stopped and thought about that generationally and how that affects different generations. So I really love what you just said, and all of that. speaking of, there's always, let's talk about bad apples for a second. Let's talk about toxic culture. Okay. Yes. One attendee in the webinar asked if we've already changed the leader and supervisors, but the culture is still toxic. Mm-hmm. So we know that you mentioned in the webinar, a lot of people leave organizations because of bad leadership. Mm-hmm. So let's say that there is a leadership change but the culture is still very toxic.
Yes.
So when dysfunction feels ingrained, what would you say is the true first step to turning it around? Is it systems, accountability, norms, team conversations, or something else?
I think you have to figure out what that is. And so I don't mean to be tricky. I mean, it can be 1, 2, 3, 5 all together.
Right.
And so you won't know until you spend time asking and listening and figuring out what are the main obstacles and also what can be levers, right, for the team.
Yeah.
So I in one of the roles that I had as leading a team, I walked in the team, and it was a team at the time of 6, 7. And so I had 3 different functions, with diversity, community involvement and impact, and then employee events. Right? Mm-hmm. And so I was new, and so were like 3 people in the team that have been there like a year. And then there were 2 people in the team who have been there for a long time. Within 6 months, so 2 of them, I knew that they were going to leave, because we talk about it, right? We talk about their career transition, why they wanted to do something else. One was moving to a different state and doing a whole different thing. Someone else had just great job offer and they really wanted to do that. But my point of sharing the story is within a year, I had 6 out of 7 people who were completely new in the team.
Wow.
Right? So that's a little bit different from a team coming with a team that has been there for a while. Mm-hmm. But it was an opportunity and a challenge for all of us to really figure out how we were a team and what could be our connection points. Because there are 3 different functional teams, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. Connected in some ways, and that was the thing, like, how do I connect them? So there were no bad apples, but there was a distinct experience from the people who have been there for 10 or 15 years than from the people who were new, right? Because they joined at a different time. They had different history or no history at all. And so to create these norms and agreements and sense of understanding of who we are, it was difficult, right? Had the 2 people who have been there for a long time stayed, the work to bring a team together will have been different. Yeah. And sometimes it's harder, right, to bring people together and help them find a common ground and trust, where you have people who, without any ill intent, they feel ownership of the culture that is already there. Right? It's like, hey, I've been here for this time. I know my stuff. And they don't say, but it's almost like, why are you you just got here. Like, what do you have to tell them about how we should do that?
I've been told that before.
Right? Like, and then you have, on the other hand, the frustrating experience for people who are new, who are like, hey, I'm here to contribute. Mm-hmm. I want to be in a good team. And I've seen some different things that also have worked for me in other places. So I love to bring them to our benefit. And in both cases, people are saying, we want to do this so we are better. Mm-hmm. But there are different perspectives about that. So ultimately, how you address a team going from that kind of dysfunction to a cohesive team, as you keep working on what is the common ground.
Yeah.
Right? What is the umbrella? Why are we here together? Right? What's the championship we want to win? Was the rec room we want to set? so that there's a point where people can look up or look around and say, got it. This is why we're here. We have different ways of getting there, but we're in this together.
Yeah. I love that you said that. So, I mean, that's a challenge in itself because you had 90% new team. So you have to find that balance between performance and team dynamic. And it's all new to this team.
Yes.
So that's a challenge in itself.
And I was new in the organization too.
You were new to the organization too. That's a challenge in itself. And if you're in a similar position as that, kudos to you.
Yeah.
But you mentioned in the webinar that 70% of engagement variance is tied to the manager.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's pretty heavy.
It is.
So what does that really mean for leaders? I mean, you mentioned finding common ground.
Yeah.
Is that empowering? Is it confronting? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I mean, let's think about the experience that we have being part of any team organization, right? You have, so there's your role, and your role is defined and kind of guided by, in big part, by the team leader of that, right? It's not fully because, oftentimes our organizational roles, and so it's not the team leader who's like, okay, I want this role to do this, and this role to do that. Their descriptions are, and in smaller organizations, it's more fluid. But the team lead, the leader of team department, they have a lot of discretion in what you're gonna do, who's gonna take on different things. Oftentimes, it's how you're gonna do it if you knew. Right? So there's a lot of leaders' decisions that shape the experience of people in the work that they do, right? And so that can be engaging or not, depending on how good of a match is what the leader wants the team member to do, and what the team member, wants to do, or thought that this is what I'm going to do, how I contribute. And so that's one way in which the leader has a lot of impact. The second is growth, right? Again, younger generations, this is a top driver of engagement and retention for them.
It's growth.
Right? Growth. And it can mean like, hey, what's my next step? Right? I remember when we were talking about boomers and millennials at the time, there was high frustration from, that boomer generation who were, the directors and talking about, this person just joined, a month ago, and they're asking me, where is the next career move? And so that was just indicative of not just, hey, I want to be promoted and make more money, but it was, hey, I own my own career, right? I want to know what the plan is.
It's important. Yeah, it's important.
Right. Yeah. So from there, what has continued to happen is that we were talking about the skills economy, right? And so because people don't trust that in the organization, I'm just going to be, led through all this pathway and in a place that I want to be in 20 years, they want to be more active, right? In acquiring the skills and the experience to be able to move forward. And so if you're not providing that learning, right? If I feel stuck, have been doing the same things for the whole year, I'm not learning anything new, that's going to dip my engagement completely. And it will dip anyone's engagement, right? I mean, routine is important, just consistency, but I don't think anyone likes doing the same thing over and over and over. There's a point where you use autopilot and you're not engaged even mentally, right? So that's another way. The manager is really who allows and creates spaces for growth and development.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is the personal relationship, right? I mean, how many people say, you've heard said, my manager doesn't like me, right?
Yeah.
Or I don't think they trust me. And sometimes there is a reality of, there's some tension and it may be because different styles or performance. Oftentimes it's just pure perception, right? So think of a manager, a leader who is more on the introversion, right? There's a personality, they're a thinker, and they're very analytical, and they like to get to the bottom of things. Right, and then you have an employee who is not only new, but it's more like learning by doing, and I like to collaborate and get some feedback to some more extroverted brain. You put those two together, and the new employee can, when meeting with the leader, hear or get like 10 different questions, right? About what are you doing this? Have you thought about this? And it can feel like my manager doesn't trust me, right? Mm-hmm. Or, I told them about, my hobbies and they didn't tell me anything about them, right? And so it is those perceptions that unless they're addressed and there's opportunity for get to know each other, they just remain this like nagging feeling, right? And so people leave the organization thinking, okay, I have no future here, or wow, like I'm going to get tired because the manager doesn't like me, without even only to find out or not find out that they were in the succession plan, seen as top performer, that they just never knew. Right. And so that's another way that the manager really, or the team leader really shapes the experience of a team member.
As you were talking, a question popped into my mind thinking about generations and teams and hiring managers. Mm-hmm. So let's say, you were in the position of building a brand new team from scratch.
Yeah.
So maybe this question is more for hiring managers or HR departments who are in the hiring role. As you're building a team or hiring for a position, let's say, you get a bunch of great candidates, and let's say there's someone who is 99% qualified for the role, but you can tell that team dynamics not really going to be a great fit. Or maybe there's just something there. But let's say there's someone who's 75, 80% better, good for the role, maybe 50%. But you could tell that they're going to fit in well, and they're going to. What would you suggest? What's more important, especially when it comes to generations? I mean, should you be looking at building a team that's more generationally diverse, where there are people who are more committed to the company and with more equity in their thought, and there's people who are thinking like, okay, I'm going to work really hard, but this is a stepping stone for me.
Yes.
It's a lot of question there.
No, but I think my mind was going to kind of sports teams. That's an analogy that I always like to think about, because so it happens with sports teams, right? Often you have this either great player who was drafted in whatever sport and then comes in the team and fizzles out, right? Or sits on the bench for 3 years, is getting paid, but people talk about, we thought it was going to be great, but, it's not living up to expectations. And then, year 4, they get traded to this other team. And they become the MVP and, help win the championship, right? And so, it's the same person. What happened? Well, they go to a system that allows them to thrive, right? They become part of a winning system. Because there's so many teams where they have a bunch of stars and they don't have a winning system. So sometimes they win because of the stars, but sometimes they lose because of the stars.
Yeah.
Right? And so if we bring back to a work setting, right, outside of sports, the skills that I always look for, and actually did this when I recruited my team, I recruited people who have not done half the team that I recruited. I recruited them for attitude and for skills and mindset, not by expertise or experience, right? So I knew that I could coach the knowledge base, right, if you will. It's much harder to coach curiosity, adaptability, openness, the resourcefulness.
You can encourage it, but coaching
it. And so if someone already brings that, right, brings openness, you're curious, you try to understand, that is what will help the team do better, right? I don't believe in culture fit, because sometimes that is a proxy for I just want someone that I'm going to be comfortable with, and I don't want to work too hard to, right? Like if you're like me, then my job is easier. Right? Doesn't mean that the team is better for that, but it can make it more comfortable, at least in the beginning, right? So it's not about fit based on my perception of what a culture is. It's about, can this person be open to learn, to listen, willing to contribute, and also has something to offer to the team, so the team is better, right?
Yeah.
That's, I think, the critical part, because frankly, I mean, there's a level of jobs where anyone can do that job because of the skills.
True.
Right? I mean, it's not a huge differentiator if you done this job for 5 years or 3 years, and if you've done it with a company that is 10,000 people or 5,000 people, right? But it is a differentiator of how you go about it.
Yeah, no, that's a really great response. So, as we're thinking through everything you just mentioned in terms of retention and retaining people on the team, because they, maybe it's not about cultural fit, but maybe they are checking the boxes and they can learn the job, but maybe they're curious and maybe they want to grow and they've got good aspirations in mind. Let's talk about psychological safety, especially on the team. You talked about psychological safety and belonging as pillars of team health. So how do leaders create safety without lowering expectations? So where is the line between empathy and enabling?
Yeah. I love that question. And it's a common misperception, right? It's a common thing that people try to marry. It's like, well, but if I do too much of this, then I'm not doing enough of that. And so psychological safety, by the way, is not my term. This was coined by Google. So Google has this team of like analytical mindsets. They have like PhDs and they do research on all kinds of things. And one of the things that the research on or study was effectiveness of teams, right? What made teams effective, right? Good performers and that they were above, right? Above other teams, right, in performance. And they found certainly that a good leader, it was a huge factor. But one of the things that they find being in the top 5, it was top 1 or 2, was psychological safety, right? And the way it's defined is, do I feel safe to speak up, right? And speaking up can be, hey, I have an idea. Hey, I have a question. Hey, I have a different perspective. Hey, I see a problem, right? And so
that's a really great point.
Speaking up is hard enough, right? Because we always have this self-conscious, like, will I sound dumb if I ask this question? Will they think like, well, you should know this, right? And so the more people in a team feel that that's okay to do, the team gets much more input, right? And you're able to see things quicker and to make decisions faster, and you have more information to make better decisions. And then it's reinforced because, hey, I was able to say I have a different perspective. It turns out that really helped us shift the way we did this, and we created this great result. Now I feel good about it. I know everyone feels also good about the safety that we have. So, I could jump in and share my perspective. So it is an enabler of performance, right? It is not, it's not about being too touchy-feely or avoiding conflict. It's allowing for even hard conversations to happen in a safe space, right? And so that's psychological safety. And then the other aspect is, what if I try something and it doesn't work, right? Because ideally, in any job, we have a certain level of autonomy, right? And sometimes you earn that, demonstrating your expertise, and sometimes you just have it because of the role that you have. You're the only one who does something, and perhaps even more of a specialist than your team leader. But what is the tolerance, if you will, for doing something that doesn't work out the way you expected, right? And of course, you don't want any fatal mistakes, right? And is the team's leader job to create those guardrails and those support systems. Like you put the net, when everyone is in the trapeze.
Yeah.
And if you're asking me to be innovative, to be a problem solver, right? To come up with, different ideas and try things out, and I do, and I had a mistake, and then you call that out during my performance evaluation and tell me that, I didn't meet expectations in this project because blah, blah, blah. Or if I try that, it doesn't work, and the team is like, you should have asked. We could have told you that doesn't work, and then the safety is destroyed, right? For that person, but also for the team, and so people are not willing to try new things. And so that's why psychological safety is about enabling even the hard things to happen in a safe space. So performance is help, right? So it's not being nice, and not talking about the hard things. In fact, it's the opposite. You have to create an environment where having hard conversations is not to the detriment of a team, but is to the benefit of a team.
So if you've listened to past podcasts or webinars, and I encourage you to go look at the archive, we've talked a lot about the importance of one-on-ones and coaching and being a coaching leader and driving curiosity within your people. But what I love about what you just talked about, psychological safety on the team and feeling that that freedom to give input and speak up is a sign of a healthy team. So would you say that if there is someone on the team who had that, and they felt psychologically safe because you noticed that they were giving input and speaking up, and then all of a sudden they stopped, would you say that's a red flag that they no longer feel bought into this team?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What would you say for leaders to kind of help with that?
I mean, the first thing is you got to pay attention, right? And in order to see it, you have to be there to see it. Right. And so there's in manufacturing, there's this concept of leading by walking, like the floor, like it's just being present in where things are happening. And every industry is different. There are leaders who have like 12 people reporting to them. So it can be challenging, right, to dedicate time. But you can create moments where you are able to observe what's happening, right? It's not only on one-on-ones. So you have to have mechanisms to get the feedback to you as a leader of what's happening, right? So it's like the pulse. And oftentimes, things that happen will happen for a while before they reach that level to the leader, right? In a healthy team, the team will try to solve for those things before they need to be elevated. In an unhealthy team, it just gets swept under the rug, and it's not my problem, and then it blows up. But sometimes if you're paying attention, you're asking, if people know that you care, they'll tell you. Hey, Guillermo, I don't know if you noticed in the last couple of meetings, either he left early or he wasn't really paying attention. Typically he's like big taking notes. He didn't have a notebook, so I'm a concern. I wonder what's happening. And then you might decide how to address that. In a super healthy team, the team will address that, right? People will go and say like, "Hey, I want to check in. I care about you. What's happening?" Right? And sometimes there are things that the leader has to address. But it's the village, right? It's like, hey, we're all here together. Like if we're all drawing in the same direction, and suddenly someone is not drawing, and you can turn and say like, hey, what the not row, or you can say, okay, well, why is that person not drawing? Right? We need to fix this because it impacts all of us, and we care about this.
That's a really great analogy to the rowing, because I immediately started thinking of a crew team and how every single person is critical to the success of that team. So let's say you do have an employee who you notice is starting to drift. Maybe it's 2 employees. Maybe there's a group of them. What would you say is the quickest way to re-engage team members when you see them drifting?
I think there's a 2-part. There's definitely like individual engagement, if you will, or intervention, where as a leader, you're responsible for the well-being, right? I'm not saying that you're like, okay, well, I solve all life's problems, but it's your team. So, you want to know how to help your team and navigate and understand what's happening. So having that conversation, providing the space for the person to say, hey, here's where I'm at, right? This is what's happening. It can be something personal. It can be a dynamic within the team. I mean, it can be anything, but you want to know. So there may be a particular thing, right, that you as a leader can do, or you can take that concern somewhere else where it belongs. And I think you double down on like team cohesion, right? So that's the time where you say, hey, we're going to take time to do, it's like, I know Friday is not a good example because everyone wants to leave, but let's say, hey, Wednesday at the end of the day is from like 2 to 4. We're going to take time away. We're going to go down this place and someone is going to join us to talk about this. Or we invited this person who's going to facilitate like this exercise or we're going to go volunteer and give the team the opportunity to bond, right? And show care and even have some fun. It's underrated how much that helps the team and the person who feels disconnected to reconnect, right? Because it's always about purpose. And sometimes you don't find that you're connected to the parts of the team. It might be that your role is very specific. So if you don't create opportunities for everyone to see each other as part of the whole, it can erode, right? So
yeah. I'd be curious to know, I don't know if you know off the top of the head, and it'd be okay if you didn't, I might look it up, what the percentage of retention is with team dynamics who focus on bonding like that versus ones who don't. If there's like, what's the difference in retention rates?
I didn't include this in the webinar because I had like so many statistics and I don't want to overwhelm. But there were some statistics about teams that are perceived, right, to be high team engagement, where people feel that the company or the team cares about them, are between 50 to 100% higher performing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge difference.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's even higher in intent to stay. So you were talking about Bay earlier. Toxic culture and leadership, so culture and leadership, are 10 times a higher predictor of turnover or retention than pay.
Wow. Let's shift for a second. And you were talking about team dynamics, and we know that sometimes team is like a refrigerator soup. You pretty much throw everything in there and hope it tastes good. But let's say that there is someone on the team, and I'm guilty of this sometimes too, where there are certain projects or certain roles where I do prefer to work solo. Not always, but sometimes I do. But let's say that there's a dynamic on the team that prefers to work solo, but we understand that the dynamic of the team, like we just said, the engagement and retention is so much higher. What about team members who prefer to work solo? How do we bring them into the team atmosphere? Like, what suggestions do you have for leaders to recognize that and honor their style and their personality, but also bring them as part of the team?
That can happen a lot, especially when you have a team of specialists that they'll have like very particular areas of expertise and focus, and they don't need to like collaborate necessarily with anyone else on the team to do their job, right? It can be that they engage solely with clients or vendors or other teams, and so one is the role, right? That can be like, okay, well, I'm the only one who does this, and there's not a lot of interdependencies with my team, and there's also sometimes a preference, right? It's like, hey, in order to do this that I need to do, I just need to be by myself, tune out. We all have some of those needs sometimes. I'm a highly extroverted person. And because of that as well, when I have to really focus on something that requires all my attention, I will often leave my desk and go to the cafeteria or find myself in another room or just change the space. One, so I couldn't be found. And two, because that was a signal for me to, okay, I'm here to do this, right? And so we all need the flexibility, if you will, of managing our energy and focus to be able to do what we do. So those are different, but at times like connected reasons why someone may say, hey, I most of the time want to be, doing my own thing. That being said, the need to belong to a greater and connect is still there.
Yeah.
Right. One of the epidemics that has been recognized in the workplace in the last, 5 years at least, for sure, because it was more evident with COVID, is the epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah,
and
because remote work.
Yeah,
yes.
and that has been researched to be in some cases a higher level of health risk than heart disease and some other things, right? Because we thrive in connection. There's so much more that comes to us health-wise and mental health and everything through relationships and connections. And you also have to be like deep friendships, right? It can be just moments of connection, but as long as you feel part of something else, right? So as a leader, you keep finding opportunities to connect the team at a level that feels togetherness, right? And so if it's not at the tactical level, like if you and I don't have to interact to do our job, our opportunity might be sitting down and learning about each other, about each other's jobs, and maybe have like, oh, wait, it's great. I have some ideas, and right. So it can be that informal. So we're still connected because I care about what you do, you care about what I do, even though we're never going to do something together, right? That may be. So provide spaces and set the expectation that we want to know each other, right? So we can support each other. Second is special projects, right? So we can say, okay, as a team, we're going to take on this initiative. And so we need all of our skills, right? It can be a project that requires the skills of people that people already have, or it can be a project that has nothing to do with what the team does. So everyone's on the same kind of playing field, right? Everyone is bringing, whatever they have, but no one is bringing the expertise. So that's one opportunity for people to learn together and to connect on that level. And there's sometimes a happy hour, right? I mean, we talk about the social engagement, and at times is the time where people meet and recognize each other as part of a team.
Yeah.
Right? Simply because we're here, we're together, we're in the same space, and all those ways to have a team feel connected hinge on people connecting at a personal level with each other, right? Cohesion is personal.
Yeah.
Relationships are personal, and there's no substitute for that.
So what I love about what you just said was it almost sounds like there needs to be a bottom line for team engagement and dynamics to build. And we know from speaking with people and experience that a lot of companies, you hear they threw us a pizza party. And so that's just not a motivating factor for people. But like we're using happy hours or pizza parties or something like that as a mean for rewarding rather than growing. So
Yes.
maybe there needs to be a mental shift there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a mix of things, right? Like a pizza party can seem fun and like a recognition of in manufacturing happens a lot, right? Hey, we hit this quality goal, pizza party, or we're gonna, and everyone gets excited about it because it's fun. And even if it's small, you're like, oh, I'm getting something, right? So that sense of reward. But that's like surface level,
Right?
Like, hey, we're celebrating together, right? That's what we're doing, and it's fun to celebrate. It's important. But if you go deeper, and some of those, again, volunteering, creating a special project, having an offsite, those kinds of things provide the opportunity for people to connect personally. So there's more depth, right? And also to have shared experiences that become shared stories and become part of the ethos of the team, right? How many times do you have people who have left the organization of the team and they're still met Right? It's like a school reunion, but for the team. And they talk about the stories. And remember when you did that? And they laugh. And I mean, that's a power, right, of what you can create with a cohesive team. It transcends the work that you're doing. It takes a lot of effort and to be intentional. It takes investment, and I don't mean money. I mean, sometimes you want to have a pizza party, you need budget.
Right.
But more than investment in money, it takes investment in energy and time, right? And I see that all the time in all kinds of ways when we're thinking about performance and like team dynamics and engagement. The connection between those two is not clear for people. And so it feels at times for leaders at all levels that is one or the other, right? Or like, this is what we're here for. If we have time, we'll work on this, right? When the reality is that in order for this to happen, you need this to be good. You need engagement, cohesion, you need a well-oiled social system to deliver on the performance that you want to see.
Scale, right?
Right? And so there's an investment you can do upfront and ongoing to ensure that you can get better and better results. And that is a mindset shift because we don't have time for that, or, it's not in the budget, or, okay, we'll do it in 6 months from now. It is detrimental to the business, right? But you have to understand how that works.
Like you said, 50 to 100%, higher.
Yes.
So hard truth question here. And this is the last question we have time for. If a leader is listening right now,
yes,
and they're thinking their retention problem or their team dynamics or their engagement problem feels overwhelming, what's the uncomfortable question that they should be asking themselves?
I'd say there are two questions, and one is more uncomfortable, but both are critical. What is my part in what the team is experiencing? Even if you're a new leader, it may be all right. Well, I haven't messed anything up yet, but what might be things that if I do this, it might enhance, right, or contribute to the problem, and it doesn't mean admitting guilt, but it's really taking accountability of, all right, I care about this team, and I haven't been really available, right? Because they put me into this merger project, and I haven't had one-on-one for 3 months. All right, let's admit that, right? Because when you see it that way, then you can decide what to do about it, right? So it's owning your role and holding yourself accountable for what you want for your team, right? Because it's nothing that someone will say like, well, you have to do all these things. What the company says is, we want you to be successful and have a successful team. So you have a lot of leeway in how that works. So is that like, what is my part in this? And be very honest and frank without shaming or feeling guilt, but just an assessment. And then the second will be, what help do I need? Right?
That's great.
What help, what resources, what I need to learn, what I need to get comfortable with, what help, we need coaching, facilitate, like what do I need to do this right? To solve for this, to grow the team. Because it's not, the role of a team leader is a hard role. There's a lot that is on that person. And there's support, there are resources. It can be partners like Frontline Training Solutions. It can be partnering with other people within the organization. It can be, maybe managers have been there for a while. They had great teams, and connecting with them and saying, tell me what you're doing, right? It's tapping into all the resources and knowledge that you can to address what you have acknowledged that you could do better.
I love that. So what is my role? What is my part in this, and what help do I need?
Yeah.
And like Guillermo just said, we at Frontline Training Solutions, we want to help you. I mean, our mission statement here is to develop people, inspire growth, and unlock potential. And that's what we want to help you do. So we have tons of resources, free resources on the website, even we're tapped into right now, like the webinar we did earlier today.
Yeah.
Retention starts with team dynamics. Go watch Guillermo. Go watch everything he mentioned. We even have, we talked about in the webinar, we can help your company create engagement surveys for your employees to see just where they're at and just give you a really good baseline to start from. We have so many different open enrollment trainings, so many different webinars, podcasts. We have a magazine that you could download and read some of the articles, full blog as well. We have lots of resources, and we want to help you. We want to help develop you. We want to help inspire you. We want to help unlock your growth. And so give us a shout at frontlineon.com. Thank you so much, Guillermo.
Yeah.
That was a pleasure. So see you next time on the Frontline.